Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq-100 Index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed right here on the Nasdaq stock market. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large-cap growth and also one of the best-performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining me this Friday afternoon, we have Ben Jones, Product Development Specialist with Nasdaq Index Research, to recap Nasdaq-100 2020 performance and highlights of products that track the index. Ben, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks, and let's take a look at that 2020 performance. Certainly an outperformer.
Yeah, Happy New Year. It was an outperformer last year. It was certainly a year characterized by, social and economic uncertainty and volatility. But if you look at how the index performed throughout the year, it really had a strong finish after what was a really weak and volatile start there through the first quarter. So let's just first talk about the finish, right? I mean, because there was a lot of question marks heading into the last quarter with the election. And you can see on the left-hand side is that the Nasdaq-100 finished strong. The index was up over 12% compared to the S&P 100, which is almost up 12%. So there was some competitiveness between the two there. We saw the Nasdaq-100 surge ahead in the last few weeks. The key is both indexes and just the U.S. market in general rebounded after the presidential election. If you think about 2020 as a whole, the Nasdaq-100 delivered considerable gains in this challenging year and outperformed the S&P 100 actually every quarter in 2020, outperforming the S&P 100 by over 30%. And that's a sign that the market and investors were really favoring the companies that were in this index because they were well positioned to adopt to that new normal, right? What we all experienced in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic, because of the work from home movement, because of all the challenges that we were faced, and the market, seemed to, appreciate that, right, and believe that these are the companies' positioned, especially those names that were, technology oriented. So overall, strong finish. The index was up over 47% for the year and outperformed its important benchmark, the S&P 100, by over 30%.
What does the Nasdaq-100 look like today?
Yeah, as I alluded to, right, technology. I mean, that is the key to the index right now, and that's where it's overweight, over 50%. But I think what's important is that it's also comprised of companies from other industries, like consumer services, like healthcare. But granted, almost every company these days is a technology company. I think that's the importance of this index, is that it's not just representing tech, it's representing growth. It's representing these companies that are leading us forward in the 21st century. So you can see how it's still the largest position is Apple. You have Microsoft and Amazon kind of rounding out the top three. But what's important, you have some really names that I think are going to be household names and probably already are, right? Think PayPal, of course, Facebook, NVIDIA from the chip standpoint, Comcast, and Adobe up there. So that's where the index is positioned. It's positioned towards tech, it's positioned towards growth, but it's also positioned to some other areas of the market, really making it a unique index going forward.
All right, Ben, and to wrap up here, your last couple of slides, I think this is really the highlight of 2020, the growth that we're seeing in the various product that tracks the Nasdaq-100.
Yeah, exactly, Jill. I mean, investors really around the world have been able to benefit from the performance of the Nasdaq-100 and its constituents. And so, if we look back to last year, we did see considerable growth across the board. And I'll be remiss not to mention the Invesco QQQ, which finished 2020 with over 150 billion in AUM, with nearly 17 billion in new net flows last year. You also see some growth in some of the international ETFs, tracking this index. You can see ETF listed in India saw assets rise from around 20 million to just over 250 million by year end. Most of that coming from new investors and inflows. In Korea, the Murray Asset Tiger Nasdaq-100 ETF almost increased 7 times in AUM. And again, that just shows you the type of interest within this index, as well as the performance that's been associated. And of course, it's in other ETPs around the world with beta shares, and Australia is another one that saw some considerable growth.
All right, well, here's looking to another stellar 2021. Ben, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.